Back to Just Keep Parenting, everybody. Hope you've had a great holiday in the midst of a holiday. Anyway, I just wanted to touch base with you and see how everybody was and see how your parenting's coming along, right? Sometimes during holidays we can get frustrated, we can get lax, and all that's to be expected. But I just wanted to touch base and see if there was, some things I could do to just help remind. And last week we talked, last video, we talked about compliance a parent's need, right? So we talked about how parents need children to comply to what they're doing and kind of went through why we have that need and how to work through that. And so today I want to talk a little bit about responding to our child's need, right? So we need compliance. And sometimes they don't want to comply. And so how do we teach this conflict resolution, right? And so as before we talked about how a need for compliance happens in 4 stages, there's also 4 stages that entail responding to the child's need, right? Because the child wants something, that's stage 1, right? They want something, they don't normally have it, or they want to act differently than they are at this point. And usually they're dissatisfaction services, right? From fighting or whining or complaining or fussing. We've all seen it, right? We've probably all done it, right? You can hear I'm listening to some soft music today that just kind of helps me when I'm thinking about conflict resolution to maybe not become so animated and to think calm while I'm doing this, right? And so I'm choosing to listen to something to help my whining and fighting and fussing. But the second phase, the first phase is the child wants something, right? The second phase is the adult's job is to transform this muddle or puddle, as it may be, into a teaching moment, right? And we've talked about the skills of empathy in past videos, the skills of positive intent, right? So we're going to latch onto those 2, and we're going to try to transform this resistance and the child's upsetness into cooperation. And that may sound like harder than you want to, it may sound something that you're really not ready to do, but we got the skills, folks, right? We've looked at the skills in past videos. So as we take the child's perspective, right, and offer understanding, eventually helping them internalize the 7 powers of self-control, right? And so that's the hardest part is taking their perspective. We have our perspective right now, but if we just put ourselves, right, in their shoes for a moment, and they're finishing up a game, or they're finishing up a conversation, or they're finishing up something, right? I often talk to the teachers about watch how I end your class, watch how I interrupt your class. I often say, okay, finish up your conversations, you have about a minute to do that. Then I give them a 30-second reminder. Okay, there's about 30 seconds and then we need to go forward, right? I never come in and say, okay, it's time to stop, because they're in the middle of something. And even as an adult, I want some time to say, okay, I'm finished with this conversation, I can move on. Because if I'm not, then I'm going to write the person a note, right? And so sometimes we push children into misbehavior, if you will, by not having that empathy, not taking their perspective, right? And so as we make these efforts, right, we take their perspective, we offer understanding, they'll usually create a cooperative climate, right? And then we can have a teaching moment, right? Because we can't have that teaching moment when we're back here in our brainstem and they're back there in their brainstem as well. So the child in phase 2, right, in stage 2, the child will become willing, right, to learn a new problem solving strategy or a new skill, right, to help them address the conflict in a more socially appropriate manner. They'll resist our attempts, right? That's the other thing that they have a choice to do. They'll resist our attempts and need more cooling off, right? And that's okay. Sometimes we all don't cool off at the same time. And so helping them to helping us, right, to understand, oh, they're not quite ready, and being able to say that, sweetie, I can tell that you're not ready yet. And so we'll just talk about this a little bit later after you've cooled off a little bit, because when you're in your brainstem, it's not going to work. Right, and so give them some time to solve their problem. One of the things I do with the children is I will say to them, we've got a couple things that we need to talk about today. If I'm doing an individual, right, we need to talk about what happened at the playground today. So we can either do it right now, or we can do it as soon as you finish playing, right? And they usually will choose right after we finish playing, right? Because they don't want to be bothered right now. They're in the middle of recess, and so as soon as they come in, we go to the couch and we have a chat about what happened, right? And so there again, I'm offering that positive intent. I'm offering that empathy to them, right? And usually we can have that, they become willing, right? The third thing that the child might do is to pretend to cooperate with you, right? Okay, sure, mom. Okay, sure, teacher, whatever, right? But they won't necessarily attend to our teaching moment, right? So those are the three things that children will usually do when we're in stage 2, right? As we're trying to transform all this mess into a teaching moment. So then we go into phase 3, right? Stage 3, which involves the reaction, right? And there's 3 things that they can do, the reaction. And so if the child is willing, our job is to show him specifically how to get the needs met in an appropriate manner. Right, sweetie, if you want to play with that toy that your sister has, you need to go ask her and say, Sally, I want to play with that toy. Can I play with that toy? And if she says no, then you say, can I play with it when you're finished? Right? And give them the specific. I love that, because sometimes we just talk in generalities with children and we expect them to figure out the mess. They can't figure out the mess. Right? We're trying to help them figure out how to do life. And sometimes they need specific words on how to do life. Sweetie, if you want to play with somebody at recess, right, you don't just go in and say, hey, I'm playing with you. But there's something that you do. You look and you see and you wait for a time. Oh, there's a good time right now because nobody's talking. So we're going to go in and we're going to say, hey, you guys, I really like this game. Can I play with you? Right? And I'm helping them to figure out that social etiquette, if you will, right, of how to enter a group that we sometimes think that children just learn through osmosis, and they don't. So as we use the skills of assertiveness and of choices, there again, you can go back and look at those videos. We literally tell that child the words to use, right? And as they use these words, use the skill of encouragement with them. That's right. That's what you did. You waited and then you went in. Did it work for you? Yeah, thumbs up, it did. Have fun playing over there today, right? Hey, your sister gave you that toy after she was finished. Way to go, buddy. We use a lot of kiss our brains, right? And the kids are hilarious. Sometimes like, I don't know why we're kissing our brain, right? And I say to them, well, it's because your brain just helped you figure that out. So you got to say thank you to your brain. So give it a little kiss, give it a little hug up there, right? They sometimes roll their eyes at me, but some of them think it's pretty funny. And they'll do it. After they do something hard, they're like, right? And it's just, it warms my heart to see them using those skills that we've been talking about, right? So going back up to, if the child needs more time, if they're resisting, right? Like we talked about, you just say, I can see that you're not ready right now to solve this problem. So tell me when you're ready, right? I like to give them kind of an option. So after recess, after centers, after you've read a book, then we can talk, right? They might need a place to cool off, right? You can go over to the, we call it our safe place, which is a couch and some IKEA chairs that have they're like a Mork and Mindy chair for those of you who remember Mork and Mindy, but they pull down so that the child can have some alone time. And that's what they call them. They call them their alone time chair. I was noticing that the children were going to their cubbies when they were upset. And I thought they need some place that they can go and just cool off. And so we got these chairs from IKEA and they have been well worth their money. So as we think about trying new skills, right, even adults who are supposedly having it all together, we have a hard time, right, trying new skills, right? And so as we're helping these children who don't have the experience or the institutional memory, right, that we have, they need encouragement, right, and support to do that. Okay, so if the child, going back to the third thing, if the child pretends to be cooperative, trust is lacking, right? They're not quite sure that they trust what's going on. The child's fear and the loss of your approval, right? That's just too much for them, right? So it comes easier when they feel unconditional love, right? And that's sometimes hard for us. But as we spend more time connecting with our child, doing the things that they like to do, it gets easier. So every day, as we have a to-do list, for those of you who are to-do list makers like I am, make sure that those children's names are on your to-do list for the day. Maybe not all your children will be on the to-do list every day, but there are certain children in the classroom who are on my list, right? Because there is a trust that's lacking. And so I've got to spend more time with them. Okay, so as we scoop into stage 4, the child responds to teaching, right? And will either need more practice with the skills that we're teaching or begin to use the skills or resist learning, right? And so if we have repeated to teach the child and they seem unmotivated to use it, right? That's when the skill of consequences come in, right? Sometimes we choose to use the skill of consequences earlier, and we have to remember that consequences comes after we've tried to teach, right? Because if we use the skill of consequences too quickly, then sometimes that trust starts to go away, right? Dissipate. And so everything continues to happen, right? So the process is the same, right? There's always a new skill to learn, even if a child asks for the car, right, from Sally in an appropriate way. There's a new skill to learn when the other child responds with a no. Oh yeah, Sally said no, she's not done with it right now, right? So you can say to her, when you're finished playing with it, Sally, can I have it then? Right? So each conflict presents another opportunity to teach, right? And so we didn't really talk a whole lot about still of consequences, but I think we've harped on that enough in past videos that we understand that. If you don't quite understand that, then go back and there's a bunch of videos about consequences and the skills and how we use that. So anyway, that's what we're talking about today. So as you enjoy your children home from school and doing lots of activities with them, remember that every conflict is an opportunity to teach, right? And helping them to understand conflict resolution, right? So that their feelings are not hurt every time somebody says no, or they go into a rage every time they can't get what they want, right? We just need to spend a little bit more time teaching that conflict resolution. So I'd love to hear your experiences, your comments about conflict resolution, and even as an adult, right, we still have to work on these skills ourselves. So Happy New Year, everybody, and enjoy your time with those that you love.